Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do ranking the horror books that I read in 2024. 2024 is the first year that I ever read any horror book, so maybe take my ratings with like a bit of a grain of salt because I'm not by any means an expert in ranking horror books, and I did only read 30, so again, grain of salt. Starting at number 30, I'm going to put Burn Our Bodies Down just because I didn't really fully understand the concept of it. I knew what was happening and kind of like a vague idea of what was going on. I just at the end felt like I had way more questions than I had answers, and it just didn't feel like a satisfying ending for me. At 29, I have I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast Is Me. I don't really care for academic setting books, and I think that was my biggest problem with this book, was that it takes place, I believe, at a ballet school, if I remember correctly, and I didn't like it. That was the main reason. At spot 28, I have Seed, which was okay. This is where we get into like the okay-ish books. I do think that the unaliving of the dog might have put this book where it is. If we did without that, I probably would have been a-okay and it would have been much higher on my list. But that does happen, and I just see no reason for that in any sort of setting. Movies, books, it doesn't matter what it is. At 27, I have Where He Can't Find You. This book wasn't very memorable to me, but I do remember just like in general thinking the plot was interesting. I do find that about halfway into the book, I was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize we were going there. And that's what got this at the lower ranking versus a higher ranking. Next up, we have The Mist by Stephen King, and I have seen the movie. I really, for some reason, for a long time had no idea he had books as well. Like, my parents never really got into the whole he has books, you should read the books type thing. So that was the first ever Stephen King book that I have read, and it's pretty much very similar to the movie, at least from what I remember of the movie. It's been a couple years, so I mean, I would read the book before you watch the movie anyways, especially if you do want to watch the movie, read the book first. Then I have Nosferatu, and this book was bigger than it needed to be, but I really did like it. I enjoyed it pretty much throughout the whole entire thing. I just think that there were some parts that were a little slow that didn't need to be included, but I know that that's what makes thriller and horror is having the slightly slower moments that create the tension that makes the horror. At spot 24, I have I Found Puppets Living in My Apartment Walls, and it's just a really small kind of like novella in a way. Not very big, doesn't take very long to read. I think I read it in maybe like 4 hours, and that was because I was sick and I was struggling. But it was entertaining, to say the least. If like Muppets scare you, it's probably a good horror book for you. And then at 23, we have Mary. I did this one on audiobook, so I think I got myself a little bit lost. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a pretty good horror book. The story was really stressful at some points, for sure. At 24, I have Not Dead Enough. That one was all right. It was very mid. I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it, but I mean, it's more of a mild horror, so there's a good one if you want like a mild horror. At 21, we have Bittersweet Chocolate, which is also a short horror book. This is kind of like women's horror. So you've got the husband and the wife kind of like loses her mind one day, essentially, and does what she does in the book. And that was insane. The whole setup was insane. 20, we have Dead of Winter, and there's not too much notable about this book, but I mean, I just like a good Darcy Coates book, so I would definitely check it out. Then we have Gallows Hill, also by Darcy Coates. I get like the shorter ones with like the haunted houses really scrambled in my brain, so I'm not going to give any specific notes on these, but I will say that they were pretty good and you should read them. And then we have Dead Lake by Darcy Coates as well. This one was one that I read more recently, and it is also very, very short. So if you want a short horror book by her, I would definitely check that one out. It was really creepy. So, you know, don't go around any lakes maybe while you're reading that one. At 17, I have Mother Thing. Again, this is another women's horror, and you just kind of see her slowly spiraling over time after the passing of her mother-in-law. And some of the stuff came out of like left field, and I was like, whoa, we spiraled real far. We hit that rock bottom. We are at that rock bottom, and there's no way we're coming out of that. She totally lost her sanity, and that is what the book captures, is just complete loss of sanity. At 16, we have Skin, which is more horror. This guy is a taxidermist, and he gets asked to do a human body. And so he does this human body, but he gets like really obsessed with it, the work and it. And he gets looped into this brand that creates this skincare that is supposed to help keep the skin the right texture. And then he just gets like addicted to it, and he winds up like unaliving other people trying to like do this perfect taxidermied human. At 15, we have Dark Harvest, which is more of a Halloween book, and you have this scarecrow that comes out and that these people all opt to try to stop, and it's very gory, very fast paced, and I think that you get like the scarecrow's point of view in a way. He may not actually be like a scarecrow, but that's what I felt like was happening there. Was I felt like he was kind of like a scarecrow that came to life on Halloween, and like they had to stop him. And then 14, we have Head of the Table. This one is very hard to find on Amazon and stuff like that because of the content that's in it. It got flagged, and I guess you can't just like randomly search it. You have to get like a link or backward search. I don't really know. I can't remember how I found it, but I think a friend sent it to me. So this one, she sets up this like dinner party with her father, and he doesn't really know who she is, but she has her father there and her boyfriend's there, and she's kind of unraveled to this point, and things happen. 13, I have The Honeys. This has a bee-related story. It's kind of like magical bees in a way. That's how I feel about it. And they go to this summer camp, and kids disappear there when they've hung out with these people called the Honeys for a long time. And the way it unraveled was like insane for me, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near those damn bees. And then we have The Troop, which follows a group of boys and their leader that are on this island. I'm pretty sure they're trying to get like badges or something like that. And this other man somehow stumbles onto this island, and he has something very contagious inside of him. And I'm not going to spoil it and say what, because you actually have to read the book to understand what was happening there and how this man even got it to begin with. At 10 and 11, we have Blackwood and Gillespie House. Those were haunted house stories. They're very quick, very easy. They're also by Darcy Coates. Again, a kind of a good palate cleansing horror. Nothing too crazy, but they were still pretty good. At 9, we have The Carol Hunt, which they go to this mansion for like a haunted experience, and a lot of crazy things happen. But then I feel like at the end, it was kind of like a grab back, like, oh, you know, that stuff didn't actually happen. So it wasn't as like horrifying as it could have been. But I still really was engaged with the story, so that's why I put it where I did. At 8, we have Weirdo Girls, which kind of reminds me of The Troop in a way, but these girls have a disease that is changing their bodies, and they've been separated from the rest of the world. And their bodies keep transforming and things keep happening. It is also sapphic, which was interesting. I didn't expect like there to be any romantic elements to it. But they're testing, they're trying to figure out what's going on. These girls are like base experiments, and they kind of start to figure out that that's what's happening. So the whole story unravels from there. At 7, we have Bunny, which was very much like an acid trip. I was so lost at some points, but then I wasn't lost, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. I was so all over the place, and it feels like you're reading from an unreliable narrator. And so you're like, what is this information that is coming in, and is this actually what's happening to this character? At 6, I have Tripping Arcadia, and I really liked this book. I was so engaged, and all of the different aspects were so entertaining for me. I was a little bit disappointed in the ending after everything has happened, because I was really hopeful that that wasn't like actually how it had ended, but it did. It ended like that, and that's why I had to put it where I did. Other than that, it was a really engaging story. I was just so sad by the ending. At 5, we have The Black Form duology. Book 1 is somehow less dark than book 2. And if you're going to read these, you do need to check your trigger warnings. Book 1 is the initial book where this couple has unalived and they've gone to this like in-between place that you go to when you unalive. And there are so many horrors and so many things that happen between the two of them and other people that are there. It's this insane place. It's disgusting. I don't even have any other words other than it being absolutely just purely disgusting and grotesque. And all I can picture when I think of like some of the characters in there is that guy from Star Wars, that big sludge puddle. And, you know, I don't watch Star Wars, so it's probably gonna piss some people off that I don't even know his name. But that's what it reminds me of, okay? Just think about that. And then in book 2, what makes it darker is that there is a child that gets thrown into the mix because she accidentally takes some pills that aren't hers. And so she's stuck in this place, and he has gone back for whatever reason he's gone back for. And so he's like trying to keep her protected, and he can't. Like, it is so disturbing. We have Hunted by Darcy Coates, and I know some people are like, why would you put that above like an actual horror book? Let me tell you, you read that book and you get back to me. Because can you imagine being in a forest and you're getting hunted down by another person? Holy crap. Like, most of that book had me thrown. I was like, I would be freaking the F out right now. At spot 3, I have Taste Like Candy 2. I love Taste Like Candy 1. Taste Like Candy 2 was not as good as the first book, which, I mean, it is what it is. You know, is she or is she not, is what it comes down to in this book. But I really thought that it was good. At spot 2, we have the Collector series. Book 1 is a lot different than the rest of the books in the perspective and the storytelling aspects and how they tell it. I really thought that it was interesting, and I felt like the following books were also very interesting. I do think the last book kind of like let me down, but overall, I personally enjoyed them. My final big spot is going to have to go to a Darcy Coates series that I read this year. So that series is called the Black Winter series, and I was obsessed. It's kind of like a take on zombies, but not quite exactly zombies. There are some people who turn into zombies, but then there are people who turn into zombies with like a really high intellect. They know what's happening to them, and they know kind of how to control it in a way. It was insane. The first book, I just thought that she was a captive. She was going to be a captive, and this guy wasn't going to let her go. And so it's going to follow like her trying to get away from him. Wrong. Read them. Anyways, that wraps up the 30 horror books that I read last year. I actually read 31, but I'm not even going to mention one because I just did not like it even a little bit. I think I DNF'd that one. You don't need to know. I'm sorry, guys. But if you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I do still have to do my thriller and my fantasy wrap up for last year. Bye.